So a little over a month ago, I posted these videos about a motel project I'm looking on, and since then I've gotten a lot of attention. And in the past month, I haven't posted much, and a couple people have been upset about that, and understandably so. The same reason why I don't want to be someone who just talks about these things. It may even seem like I'm not doing that project, but the reality is I actually have 4 new developments, each pushing along independently. This isn't to say I haven't made progress on the motel. I have actually a lot, and there's a lot that I could have been sharing, but I'm busy across the 4 and haven't been able to put anything out there. And this isn't an excuse to say why I'm not putting any videos out there. I'm hoping to change that. I just hired someone to help me with that. This is mainly a video to give an overview of these 4 projects for anyone that's curious, and for myself too. This is something I want to do more often just to get these things out of my head because it would be helpful. So in addition to that Bay St. Louis Motel project, which is a renovation of an old motel, I have the Hotel Pearl, which is a boutique hotel with these large format group units, much like an Airbnb, a collection of Airbnbs, but all in one building, branded like a hotel. There's the Boulders, which is a nature retreat in Arizona, about an hour and a half south of Phoenix, out on this incredible piece of property with these massive boulders. Looks just like Joshua Tree. And there's Oxido Sedona, which is another nature retreat, high desert nature retreat concept. This was actually the first project I started working on. This was the project that started my company, Humn Capital, my real estate development company. It was a concept and an idea that I was thinking about and working on for over a year before I even started my company. So I'm about 4 years in on that one. And each of these projects, when I think about it, they're each like a bar on a bar chart, and they're all at different phases of the process. So I'll go through each one right now. On the Bay St. Louis Motel, the last month has really been heads down on design and brand. And even though we are making some on-site progress, we have the model room just about ready. We are making some of the other just blanket construction improvements that don't need our design decisions to have been made yet, such as, replacing the columns, just getting demo done, etc. The reason for the focus on design and branding is, number one, this is a short dated project. It's only going to be about 6 months from Jan 1 till ideally when we open in May, June. Number 2, on all these projects and all these partnerships, just because I am a partner that has the creative and design capabilities, that's something that has always been important for me to hold within Humn Capital. It's one of the areas I love most. It's really why I love this job, this career so much. I don't always get to call the shots, and sometimes there's differing opinions on design and brand and direction. And that's the case on the Bay St. Louis Motel. There's no animosity. It's not like there's a competition, but I've been focusing on getting a concept package that includes interior designs, exterior designs, branding, getting that done to really just display my vision and take this project in a different direction, the one that I think it should go in. So that's been 100% focus on that. That presentation is just about done. The great thing about that is once that's done, so much is set in motion, and not just directed at a high level. A lot of actual work has been done too, and that will all trickle down out through the actual execution in the project, which is the interior design, the construction, the branding, the graphic design, everything to get us ready on that front. That's been the focus on Bay St. Louis. Moving west, we'll go to Hotel Pearl first. On this project, it's a much larger project. The Bay St. Louis Motel is about $2 million. The Hotel Pearl is $17.5 million. That project is maybe 50% of the way through construction. That has been a very long project as well. This was actually started and spearheaded by one of my partners, Urban Properties. When this came about, I was working for them many years ago, and they had the idea to basically take the large group concept Airbnbs that do so well in New Orleans and put that into a singular hotel format. There's operational advantages, there's branding and marketing advantages, and it just hadn't been done yet. The other thing about New Orleans is all these group focused units, and group travel is so important in New Orleans. People come to the city as groups. They're all, number one, outside of the city in these old Victorian homes. And number 2, the city has really regulated that and taken away a lot of these homes, taken away a lot of the supply. So there's not many options. So bringing this group hotel concept, it allows us to get more into the urban core. It allows us to avoid these regulations both now and in the future. So they identified this concept. They got this building under contract years ago, held it under contract through COVID, had to deal with the sellers to make that happen. And then 2021, our dedicated effort on this started, maybe 2022. Now where we're at and where I'm focusing my efforts on this. Because there's 8 individual partners and 3 firms, I don't have to worry so much about project management, the construction side of things. I'm focused primarily on creative direction and branding. I set and came up with the initial concept and direction, which was really this French theme, for lack of a better word, just pulling on, the heritage of the city, what the vibe of the neighborhood is around this property. This is what we use then to direct our interior design team, Ward and Gray, out in New York City. It was also what we used to direct our branding efforts, which are actually still ongoing. And at this point, I've really come back in to jump in on procurement for FF&E. The interior designers, they design the look and feel. They start with mood boards, they move to renderings, and they move to the furniture spec. And in hospitality, a lot of the furniture is custom, meaning it's new drawings of a piece that has never been made before, designed specifically for this property. You don't do this with short-term rentals. If you're doing a 1-unit short-term rental, you're not doing this. You need to at least be at some level of scale. While we're only at 10 units, we have 45 bedrooms, which I've learned kind of just put us into that next threshold on going custom on furniture. Problem with this is it's expensive. Sometimes it's actually cheaper than going off the shelf. Obviously, retailers are putting their own margin on the pieces that they're selling, but this is a new world for us. And when we took our custom spec package out to price through a procurement agent, it was far over budget. Now, it was only largely priced in Europe and the US, wasn't priced in Asia. There were some levers to pull. We've needed to largely take this in-house to explore these different channels and avenues. That's what I'm tasked with. I'm doing my best to really try to preserve the design intent while hitting our budget. That takes a lot of work. The things that I've done to get this done, I first started by taking our 300-page FF&E spec book, putting that into this Airtable database, this matrix, and separating it out by the different types of furnitures based on what manufacturer or what type of manufacturer we'd have to go to. I started sending this out direct to manufacturers through other procurement groups and manufacturers reps, etc. And I'm just gathering pricing in the meantime, and hopefully in the next week or so, at least make a decision on, can we proceed with this design intent that we've created with these different channels, these alternative channels. We're also exploring things like local production, using movie set designers here in New Orleans that are out of work because of the strikes, etc. That's the focus right now on Hotel Pearl. Secondary focus, which I'm really putting to the back burner until we figure out this FF&E, is branding. The hotel brand needs further development, as well as the implementation of the hotel brand and the property restaurant brand, the Charles and Julia, implementation via signage, merchandise, etc. We have 10 months roughly, actually 8.5, 9 months now until we intend to open. So we have some time, but it'll creep up on us fast. So I'm just keeping that in the back of my mind. Third, moving west, we have the Boulders. Now this project's unique for many reasons. Like I said, the property is just incredible. It's like Joshua Tree, which is a national park and massive, but almost wholly contained to this really 50-acre piece of land, and it's wholly privately owned by a family that is actually an investor on my Sedona deal, which I'll get to in a second. When I pitched this family on Sedona, they actually said, hey, we have this property, we're about to launch with these tents, but we like your concept better. Will you come down here and basically implement that? So I was hired by them. I guess project manager is the term we went with, but really I just say quarterback because it spans project management, finance, creative, everything I'm doing on Hotel Pearl in Bay St. Louis, just getting it done as if it was my project. What we're doing there are separate casita units, sort of like tiny houses, but desert style casitas spread out across this property. You don't want to build one massive structure and disturb the landscape. So we're dropping these in amongst the boulders. And then over time, the eventual full phase will look like about 15 of these units and communal spaces such as a pool, wellness amenities like cold plunge and sauna, lounge, sort of communal building, communal kitchen, etc. To start to wade into the waters to test the market because it's not really near another destination. We're going to have to figure out marketing. We're starting with 4 of these casita units. So the focus right now is just on project management of that. We have the designs done. Our site plan and our building permit for the units themselves are in the county portal, hoping to get that approved in the next month or so and start construction. I fly to Arizona from where I am here in New Orleans on Saturday to walk the site with our contractor and one of his subs and get the final pieces of the pricing in. And then we'll set the final game plan, the final programming on how many units, where the units are going to be placed, these first 4 units, over the next week or 2 before, really getting ready for construction to start. And finally, my baby, Oxido Sedona. This is another high desert nature retreat. There needs to be a whole nother video and longer story about this deal. Like I said, 4 years in the making, but big picture, it's 22 rooms across a 30 acre site, really concentrated on a smaller portion of that site. These rooms are spread out across 5 buildings, and the vibe, the programming, the concept is there's a really important main communal space in this main house, this central building. And that communal space has a common kitchen, lounge, dining spaces, sauna, pool, cold plunge, warm soaking tub, yoga space. And this is a place where guests can all come and congregate and interact with one another. They are designed in such a way that you can still have private experiences even when you're in these common spaces. Sort of different nooks, reading nooks, living room nooks, different parts of the kitchen, multiple burner ranges and sinks, etc. This concept really came from my partner, Lauren Werner. She has a concept called Willow House outside of Big Bend National Park. I guess I should jump back to the genesis. The core idea behind this project, which is still there today, even how it's evolved now to something that's extremely high end. When it started, it was actually an idea I had for a van life focused RV park or campground. I was traveling around during COVID in a self-converted sort of camper truck, and I met up with and ended up caravanning and traveling with a bunch of young professionals that were working remotely. They had great jobs, earned a great living, were living in vans during this crazy time, and we would just go from park to park, town to town in the West, and work during the day at coffee shops and then hang out and camp every night. And one of the challenges we kept facing was never having a place to stay. Campgrounds and parks out there, but it was always a pain to find. Some of them were good, some of them were really bad, and never having a place to work. You know, constantly getting kicked out of coffee shops for staying for too long, not really wanting to work in our vans or our campers. And I just had an idea for something that would target van lifers, of which it's a growing niche, especially at that time, and then would offer, you know, a communal co-working space with wellness amenities, the kind that I mentioned at Oxido. And some of the first renderings I got done when I quit my job. I just hired a friend to get these renderings done, didn't have much of a plan, and it was really a crazy ride to get to where we are today. I was doing some freelance consulting for different investment firms. One of them I pitched on this idea. In the pitch, later iterations of the van life idea included glamping and more structural lodging. This investment firm really honed in on that. They said that they'd back me if I wanted to pursue this. I moved to Arizona. I got connected with a family office, the family from the Boulders, spent 6-8 months looking for land, kept developing the concepts. Over time, shifted from glamping more towards tiny houses, again, for lack of a better term. I hate that term now, it's so overused, but just small private structures, but a collection of them on a single piece of property. And at that time, I didn't know Lauren, you know, to come full circle, Lauren Warner from Willow House at all. I didn't know about Willow House. And a friend of mine, actually one of the partners at Urban, who I had worked with, who I remained close with after leaving New Orleans, told me about Lauren, who's a good friend of his from college. We got connected. She was hesitant to have a call. She, after finding incredible success with Willow House, a property that she developed when she was about my age, that she did almost entirely on her own, she had been contacted by a lot of investment type people looking to replicate, to copy, to invest in her, to expand, not with the best intentions. She didn't want to have any of those conversations. Luckily, my friend convinced her to just hear me out. That was not what I was looking for. I just wanted to talk and learn. And it was one of these things where we talked for 3 hours, hung up the phone. She called me right back 20 minutes later. We talked for another 2 hours. She was like, come down here to Texas. I flew down, stayed at Willow House. It was everything that I had in my mind of what Sedona, this project, could be. I had a feeling I needed someone before going down there and before contacting her, but once seeing it, I definitely knew when I went down there. Luckily, she came back to Sedona with me the next week, and from there, she was on the project, and it shifted and changed a lot. There's been a lot of challenges, just partnership challenges, financing challenges. We've continued to evolve and refine that concept. It's changed a lot. When Lauren came in, I didn't have as much of a well thought out communal program. I didn't have certainly the level of design that Lauren has and what she's brought. And the structural components and just the layout of the site, we took a massive shift once Lauren joined. And she really started spearheading on that front. And that's how we've gotten to this place today where we feel very confident about this communal idea. The genesis for Lauren always was these South American and Texas ranches that have these separate casitas and cabins, but the main family is always gathering in the main house. Believing in that or pulling inspiration from that. Also believing in and trusting how the trend has evolved around short-term rental and Airbnb versus hotels, the benefits of each, what travelers are looking for, more autonomous experiences and independent and private without, the concierge, the sometimes oppressive staff and level of service, not to mention the cost that level of service adds. And what we're trying to do is by providing these communal spaces, these really incredible amenities that may otherwise be locked away in a spa that you have to pay for at a property like an Amman property or an auberge, it's available to the guests. They can sort of have a self-directed experience that allows us to invest into design, into experience, to provide something that we think is at the level close to some of those brands I mentioned, but at a lower price point because we don't have the F&B, we don't have a restaurant, we don't have that level of service. So that's the thesis on Oxido. I failed to mention on the Boulders, the work that I'm actually doing is communicating with contractors, communicating with the county, monitoring that process, checking in with our civil engineer who's working with the county to get those approvals done. Right now, we're in a slow period on the Boulders, but it will ramp up quickly. On Oxido, we're definitely in a slow period. Essentially, we're trying to figure out financing. The first tranche of capital was raised almost 2 years ago now to pay for acquiring the land and developing the architecture and engineering the concept, which we've done. We've gotten to a conceptual stage with that. The last year has been the capital raising effort for the full tranche of capital. The challenge with that is different parts of the partnership want to take as far as financing and debt and leverage. Again, it's all amicable. We're all on the same page. It's just figuring out how to get that done that works for everyone. And the year has been spent sort of going down a couple of different avenues and challenges. It's been slow. It's been a long process, but something I've learned and realized with these projects is a great piece of land and a great concept that will stay alive. That will keep the project team together. They say time kills all deals. It's been 4 years on Oxido, 5, 6 on Hotel Pearl, and Hotel Pearl is being seen through, and I think Oxido still very much has a chance to be seen through. And I think it's just because of the strength of these deals and how great they are, how unique they are. So that's the portfolio of projects that I'm working on. This is all under my development firm, Humn Capital. We're a small shop. I've got a couple employees overseas, but largely it's me executing on each of these projects. After I started Oxido and started moving on that, these other projects sort of came along. I mentioned how Boulders was connected to the family that invested in Sedona. That's how that got looped in the fold. Hotel Pearl, I worked for my now partners previously. I knew about that deal. I got them connected with that investment firm that backed me on Sedona. Bay St. Louis Motel, that was Urban's deal that they sourced. So it's all come along like that. The one last thing I'll mention is still have to generate revenue for the business. And all this work that I'm doing, the way real estate development works, as a partner, you get paid at specific milestones, such as closing a fundraise, starting construction, halfway through construction, completing. And then really, unless you have ongoing fees, which we really don't on these deals, you're getting paid at, a refinance, which could be a few years into the project, at an exit, which could be 7, 10 years into a project. So like all real estate development companies, having to keep the lights on, keep the business growing, you need another form of revenue, something that's more operational, that's constant and consistent. A lot of firms will do project management or property management, brokerage, sort of traditional for these development shops. That's what Urban Properties does. What I've done and begun to build is, from the beginning, it was consulting, just generally, largely focused on financial modeling and pitch deck creation. Now it's moved towards creative direction and branding. Still do financial advisory. We're not even doing the modeling anymore. We outsource that, but at a high level, figuring out for clients how to structure deals. And then a core service of ours, really a subordinate business, DealPage. What DealPage is, I'll just touch on it briefly to wrap this up. DealPage is a technology that I've developed over the last year and a half, almost 2 years now. It started as I was raising capital for each of these deals, making pitch decks for myself as well as other clients. I wanted to do something better. And at some point I just had an idea to do a web page pitch deck. I then spent 6-8 months teaching myself how to build that on Webflow, and I built it for Oxido. And when we started these capital raise efforts going down these different channels, the feedback was incredible. And I basically rolled DealPage out initially just as a service. I was doing just that for clients. I was building them web page pitch decks on Webflow. And since then, over the last year, it's developed to now where we have our own proprietary technology. We have multiple lines of products. We have these full custom longer decks where we're still executing that as a service for clients. We have these shorter 2-pager decks that we call teasers. These very soon will be releasing the ability to generate these from filling out a form, and they both connect to a back end, a software, a true software SaaS offering from DealPage, which is really for people who are raising money frequently, want to be generating these deal pages frequently, and want to be monitoring their analytics and managing the subscription documents and all the processes that come with taking in money from different people, syndicating and raising capital. So that's DealPage, and the service component of that is primarily what's happening right now. That, like I said, is to generate revenue for Humn Capital, the overall business. The software component, that's almost like, you hear of people starting companies moonlighting outside of their full-time job. That's like my moonlighting. It's not a priority. I do have beta users. They're on the platform. We're listening to them. We're making small tweaks slowly. I have an employee who's totally focused on that. But I have to maintain focus on the projects that we have here and now. DealPage, the service side, which is generating revenue in the here and now to keep this business going. So that's the full scope. And ideally, I want to share more shorter form content on Instagram, TikTok, these places where I've grown a little bit. This seems great to me because it seems like somehow longer video will be easier than the shorter videos, because I don't have to figure out how to fit all that or even parts of what I just went through into a 1 minute clip, a 60-second clip. So that's the rundown. Hope you enjoyed it. Comment if you have any questions or reach out to me on Instagram and TikTok. My username is @buckshot.io, and I guess subscribe if you want to. Hopefully we'll be doing more videos here.